Bad Brad Berkwitt Show is all about moving humanity forward and fighting for democracy. And remember, folks, every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. Hey, folks, the man with the pinky ring and the New York thing. Forget about it. Bad Brad Berkwitt. And welcome to the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. Forget about it. My guest today is a TV writer, producer, and director, along with the author of many books. His most recent that came out this summer is America, Too Good for Fascism, Too Dumb for Democracy. Please welcome to my show, the one and only Ian Gurvitz. All right, well, Ian, on your side of the world, what are you? You're 12, no, 2, you're 12. Okay, so good afternoon. I'm trying to get the time down. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Look forward to talking to you. I always start out like this. If I have anything wrong in my notes, because it's the military in me, and it's wrong because we know the internet is not always right,
Yes,
please say, hey, Brad, it's actually this, because I want my interviews, my conversations to be factually correct as they can be.
Sure.
All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the beginning and work to modern day. It looks like you were born in New York City and raised on Long Island. Is that correct?
That is it.
Okay. Talk about growing up there and how it formed you into the man you are today.
You know what? It was the wonder years. In fact, the guy who created that show, and I actually wrote an episode of it, lived a few towns over. It was all post-war, World War II families moved out to the island from Brooklyn, Queens. That was suburbia. And it just grew up hanging around the streets. That's all we did. We'd leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning. Parents would say, see you, come back at dinner time. It was idyllic in a lot of ways, but in other ways, I think we were sort of socially blind, had no idea what was going on. You know, we just lived our own little fun teenage lives. Had fun, played baseball, all the suburban cliches. So, it didn't really form me that much till I went to college and suddenly, there's a real world out there.
Okay.
I even remember as a kid watching the Kennedy assassination on TV, Walter Cronkite, watching Oswald, seeing all these things. Martin Luther King. It didn't quite sink in yet until I got to college.
Okay.
And that was sort of a little awakening.
So out of curiosity, my aunt lived, her first house when she first got married in the 70s was in Holbrook, Long Island. Where were you?
Plainview, sort of the middle of the island.
Okay.
North Shore.
Gotcha.
Nassau County.
Okay. And where are you in your siblings? Are you the oldest, middle, youngest?
I'm the oldest. I
Okay.
have a younger sister and my younger brother.
Okay. All right. It looks like before you went to Hollywood, you earned a BA in philosophy from Ithaca College, graduating cum laude, and working towards an MA in Buddhist studies from Colgate University, which included a year of living in Japan, teaching English and studying Japanese. Is that all correct?
That was it.
Okay.
That was a lot of years.
Yep. Talk about that time.
Well,
man.
one of the things that sort of changed me was about 10 days before my sophomore year, I was back on the island working in a summer camp. Came home one day on a Friday and was told that my father had had a heart attack in the city in his office, and he was gone.
Oh.
It was like flipping a light switch. It turned me into somebody else. I wanted to know why. Up to then, I was majoring in TV, radio, communications. I switched into philosophy and just had this burning question. I wanted to know why. Why did this happen? And that took me through a BA in philosophy and toward Buddhist studies, a year in Japan. But I finally realized, I looked at my professor, I looked at myself and said, I'm not a scholar. I couldn't even begin to do what he did. And I also finally found out the answer to the question, why? And the answer was, stop asking the question. This is what happens. You're not special. You're not unique. You're human. This is life. Accept it, deal with it, process it, move on. You know, that took quite a few years to get back to that point.
Okay.
Then, you know, came back from the island or from Japan, went to the island for a while, got my bearings, moved into New York, and just started scratching out a living.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, because I'm ex-Navy, where in Japan, because we had Misawa, was one of the naval bases. Where were you?
Most of the time in Kyoto.
Okay. Okay.
I was in Tokyo for a week in the beginning, week at the end, just sort of looking around. Most of the time was in Kyoto. I was supposed to be doing a master's thesis, but just drank a lot of sake, hang out, taught English, studied Japanese. Unfortunately, started smoking. Took a while to break that, and brought all that home with me.
Okay. Fast forward, it looks like you've been in Hollywood over 30 years, now working as a television writer, producer, director. You're also an author of many books. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. In that time of the last 30 years or so, what are the top two things that you feel have changed in both the state of California and your business for the good, two things for the good, and two things for the bad?
When I got out here, you could find a road in. You know, sitcoms were booming. It was a good time to be me. I wrote a lot of spec scripts. I had sold a movie. I had representation. It was open, and it didn't take that long once I got here. You know, even though there was a strike back in '88, went broke during that, but had a script and I got on a show, and the business felt open. Right now, post two more strikes, COVID, things are changing from, you know, what was then network shows into cable, now into streaming. And everything I see people talking about it is just gloom and doom, survive till 25, if not beyond. So yeah, but this business always changes. You just have to find a way through it. You know, it's always impossible to break in. You know, one thing I always said is, you know, the one thing harder than breaking into show business is breaking back into show business. So you just learn to deal with those things. You're in, you're out, you write, you hope, you do meetings. You never know what's going to work out. I've always tried to just say yes, figure it out.
Okay. And in the state itself, from when you first got there, what are two things that were good during that time and maybe not so good during this time?
Traffic was not as horrible back then. You could get places. Now I have to calibrate every trip I take, and I add 2 hours of chaos time. I just assume things will happen. I assume there'll be traffic, and I just like getting places early. Worst thing in the world is fighting traffic, looking at your watch, I'm late somewhere. I leave hours. Getting to LAX once upon a time was not a horror show. Now, anything you can do to avoid that.
And I can relate because Debbie and I were there in February and it was horrendous. I left an hour and a half early, 2 hours as well to get to Malibu and different Venice Beach and different places. Yep. It's insane. Okay. And what you said about breaking in, you know, breaking in and breaking in again in business, is there any one thing that you could say today that is better? I know there's streaming, you know, I know reality TV, there's so much of that garbage, but yes. Is there one thing that stands out to you that is better now than when you first went, as far as the business, your particular business? As far as
TV goes, I mean, look, I grew up on the movies of the Paramount in the 70s, all those great movies, Chinatown, Godfather. That's what informed me. That's what gave me a direction. I want to do something like that as much as I can. Right now, TV, I think, is more creative than it's ever been. Network TV used to be pretty limiting. You can't say this, you can't do that. You know, just make a happy little sitcom, get some laughs, and that's all we ask of you. Now, the more creative, the better, I think, because the business model has changed. When it's an advertiser-based thing, you don't piss off anybody. But when it's subscribers, you've got to create that show that makes people, you know, where is that show? Hulu. I don't have Hulu. I guess I'm about to get it. Then you need to create something to give them a reason to stay on. and not do, I'll do the free trial and then I'll bail.
Okay.
So I think that the TV business has gotten much more creative, but fewer shows, fewer years, less security. And I think there's an effect on, what you could call the writer middle class. People won't make enough to be able to live, especially in LA.
Right.
So every little cultural change has a societal effect.
Let me ask you this. A question is not even on the paper as I'm listening to you talking. As a writer and having the success that you've had, when you see so many remakes of old classics, is it because the ideas aren't? I mean, why do we see more today than ever before remakes? And most of them, honestly, are not that great. At least that's my opinion. They're not that great.
IP, intellectual property. People want to put money behind something that's already pre-marketed. They know what this show is. Let's do a reboot. Let's do a Full House reboot. People love that show. They'll learn to love it again. So that's an element of what's been going on. I don't know that they are doing as many now as they were. I don't know if that business model has sustained.
Okay. All right. So, out of writing, producing, and directing, three things that you've done, if you had to go 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3, your favorite of those three things, how would you put them?
Writing, I love because you're alone and it's pure. It's just you and the screen or the page. You can make up whatever you want. You don't have to think about what's producible, what's real, what might sell. Although usually, if you're writing something on spec, there's a part of your brain that should be thinking, can I sell this? Because I don't want to waste 6 months or a year if nobody wants it. After that, producing is fun. That's problem solving. You have to put it on its feet. What can you do? We can't get all these locations. We can't get this actor. We can't get this piece of music. So you adjust accordingly. And then, if you're doing a half-hour show, you have a week to put it on. If you're doing single camera, maybe you have some more time, a little more time, but the schedule changes. Still, at some point, you can rewrite until it's time to shoot. Then you're done. After that, directing, I love doing it. I did an indie movie a few years ago, threw myself a big party, and directed an episode of a show I was on. I liked it. It's a little terrifying the first few times because suddenly you're the person everybody's looking at. So you have to sort of plant your feet and just go, I belong here. Even if you're, fake it till you make it, doesn't matter. You just have answers. Someone asks you a question, have an answer. May not be right, but we'll see. Okay. So all of those things are enjoyable when you're doing them.
Okay. I want to go into some talking points. And the first one I'm going to read for perspective for my viewers. It's a little lengthy, but I'll read this to you. Then I'm going to ask you a question off of this talking point. We're both, I believe, at least in part Jewish. Is that correct? I'm 50% European Jew, correct? Okay.
I am 100% either European or Russian. That's what I was told. I never did 23andMe. I sort of went from the premise, I think I'm Jewish. Good enough.
Okay. Well, my dad was a man who fought against anti-Semitism in the streets in the 1960s and the 1970s. So I get my activism from my father. In 2017, Donald Trump said about the Charlottesville protesters, and I quote, "There were very fine people on both sides." As you know, Ian, but I want to put perspective for the viewers. One side carried tiki torches, chanting, "Jews will not replace us, blood and soil," which we know is part of being Nazis. They were protesting to keep statues that represented losing Confederate soldiers who fought to try and keep slavery. If Trump's words were not anti-Semitic enough, his daughter Ivanka is married to an Orthodox Jew, that's Jared, and converted. Yeah. She also has a Jewish name that I can never remember, but Deb always remembers it, the name, though she doesn't go by it. Many Jewish people, it seems, can look past all of Trump's anti-Semitism because he got the Jewish embassy moved to Jerusalem on May 14th, 2018. Some will vote for him just on that alone. One of the actors, one of my favorite actors, I heard him, God rest his soul, but the truth is the truth, Jimmy Kahn, played Santino Corleone. Our dog is named after, He's Santino Corleone, Berkwitt. said he was for Trump because of the embassy. So my question to you is this. In my heart, I believe it has more to do than just an embassy. But why do you think Jewish people could vote, not even hold their nose in, for an outright anti-Semitic bastard like Donald Trump and use just the embassy? What was the embassy? It's got to be more than that, I would think.
It's always baffled me. He comes out with this thing, no Jewish person should ever vote against me. This is all Israel. 100%. It's just backing Israel and American Jews and AIPAC. They just want to protect the homeland. And I can see the impulse. You look back at the history of it, but you have to also look at the present and go, there has to be some solution to this. There has to be. It's 75 years. My thing has always been, even if 90% of Israelis and Palestinians wanted to live in peace, the other 5% on either side would blow something up just to get the old passions going and make sure that they get everything they want. So, I understand you look through the late 60s and the 70s, everything Israelis had to do to stay alive. I understand that passion, but then I look at everything that's going on and it's like, how do you calibrate horror? It's not a numbers thing. October 7th, the invasion of Gaza, all I see is at some point, you just look at the horror and as a reasonable human being, say there must be some way to stop this. I read something this morning. I think it was Tony Blinken said that the Israelis have agreed to some sort of a ceasefire in exchange for hostages. Don't know if that's going to happen. I think that's the one thing Biden could do before he leaves office. But it's a tall order. I don't know.
It is.
How can Jews... Go ahead, sorry.
No, it is. I'm agreeing with you. It is a tall order.
I don't know, other than protecting Israel, how Jews can look at him as, I don't even know if he's not anti-Semitic as so much as he'll say any goddamn thing at any time to get people to be behind him. It doesn't matter.
But you know as well as I do that Bibi is nothing but a Jewish Trump. He's no damn good. He's not gold in my ear. He's a piece of garbage. And Trump was mad at him because Bibi didn't kiss Trump's ass enough, whatever he did for him when he was president. That, as you said, whatever, he'll say anything and do anything, but he doesn't care about it. If you were to put it on a map and say point to Israel, he wouldn't know where to point. He'd point to his ass before he went to Israel. No,
couldn't find it.
Yeah.
You could draw a map of Israel on his ass and he still couldn't find it.
If he couldn't find it on his ass at that point, as big as that thing is, he's blind.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Talking point. You've been an adjunct professor at Chapman College since 2017. Is that correct?
Yeah, Chapman University.
Chapman University, which coincides with Trump's first year in office. No dig on what you were doing, but I want to tie it in. When you see Trump, who's truly an idiot, and the MAGA cult, who are even bigger idiots because they follow an idiot, going after getting rid of the Department of Education, what goes through your mind, Ian?
He's just placated. Look, who was his Secretary of Education?
Betsy DeVos.
Exactly. Do you think that's because he cared so much about education? He was placating those people who voted for him. What did he say? I love my Christians. He even says it like a moron. Yeah. I remember 2016, what's her name? Omarosa, who was like running point.
You're going to bow to him.
Yeah. She took him to a black church and they're playing gospel music. And that son of a bitch couldn't even clap on the downbeat. He's smacking his hands together on the 1 and the 3. Yeah. His fat lumbering ass. It was so phony. And yet he does it because he thinks it'll play. And obviously, with some people, it plays. Yeah. He gives them what, that's his little, how he placates evangelicals, because to them, Israel is, Jesus' landing pad for the resurrection. Yeah. That's their stake in this. So he plays to whatever base he has to. Says any damn thing, even if it's nonsensical, they buy it.
Yeah.
you know, when he did that, there are very fine people on both sides thing. What was it? Jerry Cohn standing behind him.
Yeah. He resigned. So Elaine Choi was behind him, but Cohen resigned. He actually resigned.
Yeah, and you could see him throwing up in his mouth.
Yeah,
standing behind him, and with all these people, you know, it was, to me, it's how far will they go?
Yeah.
At what point? You know, that's why, you know, and I see these people occasionally. I see Scaramucci. He's got a big presence. I saw one of his, I think it was Tillerson, maybe one of them's got a book coming out. These are all great as one-off. What I wish Democrats would do, someone would do, is put on a show like he did against Hillary with all of Bill's women, that little press conference.
Yep.
Put on one show. Trump veterans warn the American people. Put them all on a stage, 15, 20 people, and go one by one. How big an idiot is he? How dumb is he? How dangerous is he?
Yes.
Let's go, moment by moment, and put that show on, because it's the one thing Democrats don't understand. They don't know how to put on a show. Now, they may be wrong. Let's see how the convention goes. You know, the last one was done pretty well, but by and large, they don't understand what he unfortunately understands.
Yeah, your preaching is required, because what you just said, I did a video, and I did 20 years and 28 days in the Navy, and I called out General Milley, General Mattis, General McMaster, and John Kelly. And as I said, I will not call him General John Kelly, because I don't fucking respect John Kelly, because he let him attack a Gold Star black family, Sergeant Johnson's family, whose wife was pregnant. He knew what he signed up for. So I don't respect John Kelly, but I am calling him out if he wants to call himself an American. Look, the only one I ever liked in his cabinet was Jim Mattis, okay, General Mattis. But my problem is, Ian, to what you just said, they've all written books. Some of them do speaking engagements. It all comes down to the fazools, the money. If you do that, okay, and I had somebody tell me, and I shoved it up their ass on Twitter, they try to say, well, they're apolitical. I said, I would have no problem with them being apolitical in any other time, but this time. Right now, it's about democracy and humanity and his existential threat to both Donald Trump. They've all talked about him in books or public speaking. John Kelly likes to speak to the Atlantic and give him a thing for a print job. Go to DNC or go out. Actually, what I called for them to do was, you got enough money, all of you, on your own dime. If you love this country like you claim you do, go out to all 50 states, all 4 of you generals, and speak to these people, because you will peel off some of them. It might be the people in between, because the MAGA fuckers are gone. But the people in between, you got a chance, because they respect the military. But none of them are doing it. This E6, me, I get death threats and everything else because I do it. So it ties into what you just said. I absolutely agree with you. And the Democrats don't understand that, because where Donald Trump does, and he fights back, we don't have to do all their rhetoric. I do it when I go after him on my videos. But they need to fight back. They need to fight back in this. We go high, they go low. That shit's over. They go low, you take their fucking kneecaps out. Period.
Yeah, I knew that was dangerous when it first, we're going to take the high road. No.
Right, no.
He's dragged all these elections into the sewer.
Yes.
You have to at least put your toe in the sewer and beat the hell out of him there. I used to work in advertising in New York, and there was this adage in advertising that nobody reads body copy. Everything is the headline, the visual. What feeling do you get off of an ad? And the unfortunate thing is, Democrats campaign in body copy. They'll talk all day long about the CHIPS Act and earned income tax credit, and this cry about when will the media give Biden credit, for the economy. And it's like, no, it's not their job to give him credit. It was his job to take it. And not with lame ass slogans like Bidenomics and Build Back Better. Alliteration is not a substitute for a sales concept well executed. That's why I said, when you talk about all those generals, they can go out individually. They can do local TV hits. They can talk to groups individually, but there's no substitute for the power that they would have together on one stage. Look at CNN. They gave Trump that ridiculous town hall.
Yeah.
Where they first of all, he stocked the pond with all his idiots. Then he just rode, fire hose the moderator. He does this, excuse me. He just keeps talking.
Yeah.
He doesn't respond to questions. He reacts to them.
Yes.
What is this question? How does this make me look? What do I have to say to get past it? And I'll just go back to my talking point. He knows how to do this. And that town hall was just more of what happened in 2016 when they aired his rallies in their entirety. My thing back then was, people said, well, what is cable supposed to do? News shows should have run a 10-second clip of his rallies under the headline, deranged racist maniac loses local arena.
Yes, I agree with you.
Frame it.
I agree with you. Back to what you were saying a little earlier, I agree with most of what you said. Where I want to push back, and you tell me if you agree or you don't agree. I absolutely agree with you in that Democrats' messaging, they need to do it better without all these talking, like you said. I'm saying in everyday layman terms, get across table issues that people understand. However, what I will push back a little bit on is when you say it is their job. I agree with you 100% there. But I also feel, and you tell me what you think, that the media doesn't cover Trump and when it was Biden fairly, because you're only talking a couple of years age. We know President Biden. I love him to death. He's slowed down. Okay, we know it. But Trump is not he's not Errol Flynn. He's not walking around like he's intelligent. He's getting worse every day, slurring. But the mainstream media and MSNBC, who I watch, I only watch Lawrence now, to be honest with you. But now, they don't cover both sides fair. Even with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, they won't show, C-SPAN will show the rally, but they'll show some shit with Trump. I mean, come on. What do you feel about their coverage?
This was the problem in 2016. I was screaming at my TV before I started writing it down in books that what you're giving him free airtime, but he knew what he was doing.
Yes.
If I give them a moment, remember that? I'd like to punch him in the mouth. Get that guy out of here. I'll pay your legal bills. All that shit. He knew what he was doing. He was giving them sound bites, and they are
ratings.
Ratings eyeball. It was reality TV in another form. Yeah. And he gave it to them, and they fell for it. You know what? Going back, Lawrence O'Donnell was the first one to actually use the word liar on the air. And even liar, I think, is soft in describing what he actually does, which is to reframe reality. He bends reality to his will, so they're not conventionalized. But he was the only one to start using it. But at the same time, they had Kellyanne Conway, Boris Epshteyn, Steve Cortez, Katrina Pearson under this. Look how fair we are. Look, we're fair. We're presenting both sides. Going back to Charlottesville, there are no two sides.
No, there is not.
In Klan riots, in Nazi riots, in Jews will not replace us. There are no two sides. So, to me, that's always been the danger of the coverage. I mean, I didn't see this segment, and I do watch Ari Melber now and then. He had Stephen Miller on.
I have a problem with that. I said no. I said absolutely not. And this is just my opinion. I said no way. He shouldn't have had him on, and I don't want to hear. We need to hear what he has to say. I don't agree with that. We already know what that bastard, and he's Jewish, by the way, and we don't need to hear what this piece of garbage has to say. We already know it. But they platform. I don't care how hard Ari Melber pushed back. I had a problem when Stephanie Rule put Lauren Boebert on like 2 years ago. I don't need to hear what that 5 times to take the GED tramp, as I call her, Hobart, has to say. There's nothing she has to say I need to hear.
No, and all you're doing is platforming them, even if they battle the truth to a draw, which is what Kellyanne has always done and is infamous for. During COVID, I think it's contained. Don't you think it's contained? Because at that moment, contained was the operative word.
Yeah.
So they were trying to sell that, but they still give her a platform that she doesn't deserve. She's done more harm to this country. She legitimized Trump at a time when he was doing badly with women because of all, Access Hollywood, all those stories that came out. She put on a big smiley face. And I think she was pivotal in keeping his campaign on track.
But you know what, Ian? If you back up just a little bit on the Kellyanne Conway, she got a lot of credit. But to be honest with you, that piece of garbage, Huey Pardon, Paul Manafort put everything in motion Kellyanne came at the end, because I know people in the business have been in the business 40, 50 years. And Kellyanne Conway gets a lot of credit for where she came on board because she was so loud and boisterous and obnoxious and all of the above. But Manafort was a big part of that before they got rid of him. And I'm just waiting for him to add him to the campaign, because you saw he brought back that piece of shit woman abuser, Corey Lewandowski.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what he does. He goes to the hits. He goes back to the basics. Who worked for me last time? I'll bring them on, because he knows that the polls are going in another direction.
Yeah.
You know, now, I mean, I'm encouraged by the way things are going. But I mean, right now, I'm sort of halfway between Yes We Can 2008 and I'm With Her 2016. I'm not quite sure how to feel, but I do know that Democrats need to run as if they're 10 points down. I don't care what the polls are.
I don't care about any polls, because the polls said Hillary was going to win, and she should have won, and it was ridiculous that Trump even got in. But and the thing is, I tell people watching the show, you cannot become complacent. You have to vote like we're going to, like you said, we're 10 points down and we're going to lose. Get your asses out there and vote, because even when we vote, as you know, Ian, they've got people in places now to try to overturn this election.
Yeah.
When people set their asses out for these state and local elections, they voted people in that will do his bidding now to overturn it. So you're absolutely right. We got, as Glenn Kirshner says, we have to vote so, I forget what he said, a good friend of mine says, we have to vote so big that they can't see. He rhymes it. I can't remember what it was. It's true.
You've got to put it out of stealable range.
Exactly.
But,
exactly.
I still hear, Hillary 2016, she won the popular vote by 3 million, and Biden won it by 7 million. It doesn't matter. It's up there on the list of excuses but we were using birth control. It is absolutely meaningless. It's all the Electoral College. They know exactly what they're doing. And yes, what they failed to do last time, they will take a shot at this time.
I agree.
I have no doubt. He wants to win at any cost.
At any cost, because he knows there's a chance he may go to prison. And that's why he ran. I don't care what anybody says, he ran. And let's see next month when Judge Merchan sentences him. I hate to say it, I think he's not going to sentence him to 1 day of prison. And I'm not just saying it because I hate his fucking guts, because I do. But if anybody ever should go to prison for what they've done to this country, it's Donald Trump. It's funny how a jury of his peers are no longer a jury of his peers because they found him guilty on 34 of 34 charges. I've never seen anybody where they were so innocent. Even if he got a walk, the light could say no walking across the street on Fifth Avenue where he could shoot somebody, as he said, and he'd say, "No, it wasn't that. I shouldn't get a ticket because I'm Donald Trump." It's just insane. Okay. Another talking point. This is kind of more of a fun question, if you can answer it. You've been a successful TV writer for years. When you see, and you mentioned this earlier, the hope and joy of the ticket of Harris Walz, if you had to write a screenplay about the first 4 years of their time in the Oval Office, should they win, and I feel they are, what would be like 2 or 3 things that you would really focus on in a Harris Walz 4 years?
Roe v. Wade, immediately. They have to codify it into law. Strengthen NATO. He tried to turn NATO into a protection racket. Obviously he's kissing up to Putin.
Yep.
And you cannot cut back on aid to Ukraine. That has to be. You have to bolster voting rights. That has to be, so that we don't have something like 2016 happen again. You have to enable people to register to vote. They ought to teach civics. We go back to education. That's one of the problems we have. We don't teach civics. People don't understand the meaning of freedom. They think it's something that you have. I've got my freedom and you can't tell me what to do. Gun safety. Pass as many laws as you can. Although, one thing I've written about this a few times. I think the problem, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a sucking chest wound. The problem is so overwhelming in this country because, you've got the NRA, which is not a gun owner's lobby. It's a gun manufacturer's lobby.
Yes, it is.
And they'll keep kissing their ass. But so you need to pass as many laws as possible. But obviously that's going to depend on who wins not just the White House, but Congress. And there were some, races there that are looking iffy.
Okay. I know we both despise Donald Trump, but if you had to, off the top of your head, to give the viewers 2 or 3 things, I know there's so many and 2 or 3 is hard, but 2 or 3 because we'll be here for 4 hours, or we'll be here 4 weeks, really. What are 2 or 3 things that you like to nail home to the viewers on how much of a existential threat to democracy and humanity that Trump is?
Look, I think Democrats need to rebrand him. Trump is dumb. He's the dumbest human being I've ever seen in my life, and I've dealt with some colossal idiots. He's deranged. He is not in his right mind. He's saying, forget whether his dentures are slipping or not. The things he's saying are deranged. He's got mental problems. I think George Conway has been trying to make this case. He's dangerous. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead because of what he did during COVID. Okay, he tried to pull his little Trump magic, and he tried to bullshit germs. And because of that, you've got, he Herman Cain hundreds of thousands of people. He tried to cram the economy back open in 2020. He sold us out, tried to sell NATO out to Putin. He does this thing, my economy was the greatest economy in the history of the world. It's total horseshit. All he did was ride the wave of an Obama-Biden recovery, juice the market with tax cuts for the rich. Under Obama-Biden, after the housing market crash, if you use the Dow as any sort of metric, it went up almost 300%. Under Trump, 30%. So that thing about rescuing the economy was horseshit. So yeah, I think he needs to just be rebranded as the fool he is. When I was a kid, my father took me to the circus in Madison Square Garden. And we're looking at the people, the trapeze artists and the guy on the big bicycle and eating a lot of junk food. And then you see the clown. He's wearing a big stupid suit and big floppy shoes, jumping around with his stupid ass hair. And I never remember turning to my father and saying, I think that guy should be president.
It's true.
That's what we elected. We, and this is why I hate the son of a bitch. And I scream at my TV nightly, but he didn't elect himself.
No, he didn't. And none of them did. None of them did.
He came down that escalator in 2015 with the blow up doll wife and the people he paid $50 a head to scream.
Yeah.
And, when Mexico sends their people, they're not sending their best.
Rapists and murderers.
Drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, all that. Nobody had to vote for him. The reasonable response from an intelligent, patriotic country would have been, get the fuck out of here. You don't get to put your tiny, sweaty, rapey little hands on our democracy. No. Go. You're a joke. Get the fuck out of here. Instead, 63 million people voted for him. And after 4 years...
12.2 more the second time.
Yeah. After all he did, those years.
Yeah.
Tried to destroy American lives in 5, 6 different ways. ACA. First order of business. Why? Because Barack Obama insulted him at the 2011 correspondence dinner.
Yep.
Yeah. He humiliated. This is his white whale. He wants to kill the Affordable Care Act more than he wants to eat his next hamburger.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. When you talk about that Trump with the correspondence dinner, but here's the thing. You got me. You're probably a couple of years older than me, not much. But here's the thing.
Probably.
You had Gary Hart, who was the leading candidate in '87, I forget if it's Jessica Hahn, whoever was sitting on the boat monkey, sitting on his lap.
The monkey business.
Campaign. You had him attack a war. Look, I knew John McCain. Didn't agree with probably 99% of his politics, but the one thing I will defend him against the left, the right, and anybody in between is the man was a war hero. He was in Hanoi Hilton for 5.5 years. His father was a rear admiral. Could have got him out earlier. He didn't. Couldn't lift up his own fucking hand to comb his hair. Now, his daughter, piece of garbage. Can't stand Meghan McCain. I like Cindy. I don't like Meghan. But to attack him, and Frank Luntz, that piece of shit, sat there. I would have said, get off my fucking stage. I'm done talking to you. That should have been the end of it. Then you have the Hollywood Access tape. We can't. Paul Ryan and all of them back off of them. And it doesn't take them out. I knew then how fucked up a segment of this country was to still stand by this guy, because anybody else but Trump, it would have been over. Gary Hart was over, and Gary Hart was a completely better candidate than Donald Trump. Donald Trump wasn't even a candidate. And the fact that a fucking convicted felon in 2024, adjudicated rapist, liable for fraud, can't do business in New York, disgusting pig, he's 215 pounds and I'm 6'7", okay?
Yeah.
Can still run for the president of the United States. That in itself needs to be fucking changed within the laws.
But that's us.
That's us.
Nobody has to vote for him.
No, you're right.
After all these years, after his first term,
yes,
after running in 2020, after everything he's done since, after everything you just mentioned,
yeah,
how is it possible he's still in the game? That's what has baffled me, and it's
because he's a useful idiot. I really believe he's a useful idiot to Putin, for Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell wanted those 3 conservative judges. That's his legacy. Yeah. That's because I used to get mad with Joe. I said, Joe, I love you, but stop saying Mitch is your friend. I know you're one of those old school guys. I get it, Joe, but he's not your fucking friend, because he's trying to destroy every good thing you're trying to do. That's not a friend, because they can't. No. It's so toxic there, and you notice it. It's so toxic. They can't even go to Georgetown anymore and have a beer. McCain and them used to fight, but McCain was friends with Joe Lieberman, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey was a different person. He's probably always been a piece of shit, but he was still acted differently back then. Now I don't even know who he is anymore behind Trump. But you're absolutely right. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, these Tim Burchett in Tennessee, who's a racist, misogynistic pig. I go after them daily on Twitter. They didn't vote themselves in. They didn't go in the voting booth, pull the lever, or however they did it. People voted them in because people identify Trump didn't start racism. He didn't start misogyny, but he gaslighted and he made these bastards feel, I can say it. I can do it. The only thing they don't realize is they're not 25 Secret Service deep. They're in front of your face. And when they catch the right person with that bullshit, they're either going to catch some hands or some feet. But Trump can get away with it. You're absolutely right. You're preaching to the choir with what they didn't vote themselves in. Let's talk about this. Your most recent book, America, Too Good for Fascism, Too Dumb for Democracy, which came out. It's en route to my house. Still didn't get it, but as soon as I get it, I'm going to read and do a review, and I'll bring you back on for a solo show about it. Give the viewers a brief synopsis of your most recent book.
It's just an assessment of where we are. It sort of goes back to, how is this possible that there are people in this country who would still vote for this idiot? He empowers the ignorant. You know, he gives them a voice. Remember what he said? I am your voice. I am your retribution.
Yeah.
Everybody who is pissed off about they don't have a good enough job, they don't have enough money, they can't get the car they like. They think he's going to deliver it to them. So he's got different groups of people. Some of them I think are just fucking dumb. That's just the way it is, you know. And I grew up, as I said in the book, sort of the World War II mentality. You know, we're the good guys. That changed a little bit during Vietnam, but we still pride ourselves on being noble, ethical, patriotic people. You know, I'm not much for the flag wavy kind of patriotism. Flags, it's just symbols and songs and all that stuff. It's all well and good. I respect the ideas about how to live your life underneath those symbols, you know, and people who have sacrificed for it. Those to me are the important things. But there's an aspect of this country, there are people in this country who are just easily fooled. There's another segment who are just greedy as fuck, and they don't care what he does. So Roe v. Wade, so what? Who cares? I get my tax cut. You know, I don't know that if you had 20 million, that there's anything that you can't get if only you had 25. You know, but we don't teach the idea of society. We don't tell people that, yeah, we work in a capitalist system, but we live in a democratic society. We elect representatives, we pay taxes to do the things that we need to do for all of us. We can argue over how to use that money, how much people should be taxed, what programs, all that. These are legitimate arguments. These are the old-fashioned arguments that people used to have. But they're basically, nobody ever disagreed on the destination. It was just sort of the direction. How do we get to where we want to go? I think we've lost that. We don't even know where we want to go. You know, people are ready for civil war. To what end? What are you accomplishing?
Right. I agree with you, yeah.
I sent you that I was upstate New York this weekend at a family thing, and down the street is this mobile station with a big, you know, "Go Trump, Bring America Back" flag. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy getting out of that guy?
Yeah. That guy wouldn't even stop. Yeah, we see him out here. Deb and I go to dinner in Valpo. We live in Winfield. Okay. We go to Valpo. It's about 25 minutes by car. We go past houses where the fucking front yard grass is over the roof. They got, believe it or not, cars on cinder blocks. I didn't even know that was a thing anymore in the yard, but out here they do. We're in Indiana. And they got Trump 2024 or "Don't tread on me." Who the fuck wants to tread you? I don't even want to come. That was one thing good about COVID. You had to wear a mask. So I had to look at your face and smell your horrible breath. Don't tread on me? No one's trying to tread on you. But I want to, you brought up two things I wanted before we transition to the second half of the conversation today.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, because you brought up two good points. The flag. The flag for me, I got one in my shadow box behind me, and I got one above it that you can't see that was flown in Guantanamo Bay when I relisted. The flag, I'm not a wipe your ass, burn the flag. Though it's your right in this country to do it. Don't get me wrong. I know it's the, you know, freedom to do that shit. I don't agree with it. However, I will, what you were saying, I concur. When I go out now and we're in Trump land and I see the American flag, I almost cringe, because it's almost like a episode of what was that 80s show, V, where they were aliens and they did something and they were like, oh shit, that's an alien. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe they stuck their tongue. I can't remember what it was, but there was a sign. It's like their calling card that we're for Trump. Now, I know not all of them are, but a lot of them are. And my problem is their hypocrisy, because I call them patriots, not patriots. They're hatriots, because if you respect the flag, then you're not okay with Donald Trump coming out twice at CPAC and humping it. That's not that's not cute. It's not funny. It's disrespectful. It's not funny having him as Rambo or any likeness of him on the flag. That's desecrating the flag. And finally, if you're flying the motherfucking Trump flag above the United States flag, which the POW flag goes below it, this is all fact, goes below. Nothing goes above the American flag. But you're doing that shit. You could take that flag and shove it so far up your ass and break it off, because you're not patriotic. You're a bunch of hatriots, and I absolutely agree with you with the bastardization of the flag. And finally, the second part of it is the flag is supposed to encompass all people, meaning LGBTQ, African Americans, Jews, Christians, everybody, because that's supposed to be what Jesus was about, because they're so religious, right? Jesus was accepting of so many things, but they're not accepting, but they say they believe in Jesus Christ. Right there, what they believe in Jesus Christ. It's the hypocrisy of everything you just said on steroids when it comes to Trump and his followers. I've never seen anything like it. I never thought I would see in my life. I don't care. You can hate Reagan and trickle down economics and everything about him. But the one thing I will say, Reagan never said out of his mouth, and if someone can find it, then send it to me, and I will say I was wrong, that back then was Gorbachev, who was a lot better than Putin, that Russia or Kennedy with Khrushchev, that Russia was ever our fucking friends. When have you ever seen a sitting president? I was stationed in Korea. Kim Jong-un, his father was in charge when I was there in 2002. His sister actually is worse than he is, Kim Jong-un. If she gets in charge, you're going to see mass casualties. But Orban, Xi, when have you ever seen a sitting president, even from the Republican Party, Bush, and I know he got all of his flaws, but sit there and praise dictators and his dumb cult and the MAGA Republicans in power and the ones that don't say anything, who are complicit, they just as guilty as the MAGA ones, that Russia's our friend. When have you ever, would you ever think that you would see that, Ian?
No, that's one of the things that blows me away about what's going on. But here's the thing. I hear Democrats a lot, and they rail about hypocrisy. The worst thing, I wrote this years ago, the worst thing you can call a Democrat is inconsistent in their position, or horror of horrors, a hypocrite. The worst thing you call a Republican is out of power.
Yeah.
And they simply don't give a shit. None of these things mean anything to them. They will say what they need to say at any given point. And Trump has had, I hate to use this word, the most success at that. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade. McConnell pulled his stunt in 2016.
Yep.
I'm not giving Merrick Garland a hearing.
Yep.
It was 8 months before the election, and his little thing was, let the American people decide. 4 years later, about 8 days before the election, it was Amy Coney Barrett.
Yep.
Come on down.
Yep.
And Democrats went nuts. We got him. Contradiction. He's a hypocrite. They don't give a fuck.
No.
That's not the game they're playing. He said what he had to say in 2016 to get what he wanted, said what he had to say in 2020 to get what he wanted. I don't know why or how Anthony Kennedy resigned, but they managed to hijack the Supreme Court. This was the evangelical wish list.
Yeah.
And those two guys gave it to him.
Yeah.
So as far as
Lindsey Graham. Yeah, Lindsey Graham. Remember that? Read my lips. Or not read my lips, Bush. He said, use my words against me if we try this. And they did. And then what does he say? Oh, well, that's not really what I meant. Man, fuck you.
No. But you remember, Donald Trump is a race-hating bigot. And if we nominate him, we will
xenophobic, homophobic. He's gonna get our troops killed. If you get him in, he's gonna be the destruction of the party. Well, that part wasn't wrong what Lindsey said. But
I remember
he's with
Lindsey went down to Florida to play a little golf, and suddenly he came back to D.C. and he was on the train.
Yep.
Now, I can't imagine how bad those pictures have to be.
And I think there were little boys. If you really want to be honest, that's what I think.
I don't even want to take my mind to how bad those pictures could be. But I think, frankly, Russian compromise is the game he's playing with a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He gets shit on people. It's not just arm twisting, it's blackmail.
You know what it makes me think of, man? Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're preaching to the choir. I think he's like not as smart, but a modern day. Because I always felt the most powerful person in our history, American history, was Herbert Hoover. And that's because he had dirt on everybody, including the Kennedys, who didn't fuck with him. He had tons and tons of stuff. That's what I think that Trump or his people have on these people. Because what the hell could make you go to this extreme? I can't see it.
They'll say anything they have to say to support him. What was it? Even after Access Hollywood, Mike Lee from Utah. I can't look my daughter in the face. Well, somehow he managed to.
He sure did.
They play on the moral high ground when it suits their needs, but they do what they do. And I don't give a fuck what they say. I do watch what they do.
Yep.
How many voted against certifying the election?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Even after a fucking insurrection, even Kelly Loeffler, who I can't stand, who ran against Warnock, who she's a pathetic. Yeah. She sat down and shut the fuck up. Now she's back to her bullshit again, but she sat down. Ted Cruz didn't. That piece of shit, Josh Hawley, all of them. How about Kevin McCarthy? He's responsible for January 6th. Then he went down and kissed the ring a week later.
Well, look, Mitch said what he had to say, right? He could have whipped those votes.
Yep.
For impeachment. He could have done it. But he said that's why we have a legal system.
Yep.
Well, how'd that work out?
And he's endorsing him. Ian.
Of course he is. All he does is say what he has to say in any given moment to get what he wants. The words could be completely contradictory to what he said before. But since you brought up January 6th, one thing I've written about in this book, I'm surprised you haven't gotten a copy. I sent it a long time ago, but I'll get it to you.
You know what it is? That prick, the guy that Biden couldn't get fired. What's his name at the UPS?
DeJoy.
He said he got it in for me.
No, last time I saw that guy, he was playing Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. But the one thing about January 6th that I always hear, I hear the insurrection. It wasn't an insurrection. That might be the legal term. It was an attack. It wasn't two things. He didn't whip up a crowd and the crowd went nuts with stun guns and bear spray and zip ties and matching outfits. That was pre-planned. That was his play. I want to just gum up the work. I want to stop this, throw sand in the gears of certifying the election. I don't care how it happens. I'll hang my pants. I'll do anything. I just want to stop it. So I think Democrats have to get the words right. This was a planned attack. He didn't incite an insurrection like it was two things. He launched an attack. And, you know, they talk about he watched the TV for 187 minutes and he didn't do anything. He did do something. He waited. He was waiting and watching to see if this would work. And only when it was clear that it didn't work did he make that lame ass, "We love you, you're beautiful, now go home."
Go home, yeah.
That lame ass video. He meant none of it. All he knew was that his play failed. So I think this just highlights how fucking dangerous this guy is. You know, I have no doubt that he went to the military to back up his play.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Chris Miller, who sent a memo on January 5th, neutering the National Guard. These were not accidents. So, you know, it may be like a subtle distinction because insurrection may be a legal term that,
right,
you know, they should have gotten.
I can't push back on you in that one because I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's a good way to frame it. Yeah, he did something in 187 minutes. You don't hear that side. That's the writer in you, by the way. But 187 minutes, he did nothing. He sat there to see what was going to work, and it didn't work. And you know what's so fucking lame? But you said about "I love you, go home" in the video. But he said it was BLM and Antifa. If it was BLM and Antifa, would he have said "We love you, go home"? He hates BLM and Antifa.
There would have been bodies.
Give me a name. He says, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand by." I denounce them. Stand back and stand by. 30 minutes after the fucking debate, they were selling T-shirts with that bullshit, just like when he was doing his fist at that fucking shooting, at the whatever you want to call it.
The game is heads I win, tails it's rigged.
Yep.
He started it in 2012. He pulled it out in 2016, pulled it out again in 2020, and he's going to do it again. Yeah. He's going to scream bloody murder if he loses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rigged. And they're going to get that, you know, Mark Elias is going to be a very busy guy.
Yes, he is. He sure is.
Not that he isn't already.
Right. Okay, let's do this, Ian. Let's take a short commercial break. And then when we come back, I'm going to transition to the second half of 360 Conversation, just fun, random questions. Hey folks, this is Bad Brad Berkwitt, the host of the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. And I want to talk to you about sponsorship. If you're interested in being a sponsor on the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show that features network guests and entertainers and people from all walks of life in business and other areas, reach out to me at ringsidereport2014@gmail.com. Again, that's ringsidereport2014@gmail.com. I'm finally in a position that I'm ready to take on sponsors. So, hey, reach out to me and let's get you on board. I want to talk to you about my book, Boxing Interviews of a Lifetime. If you watch my show, The Bad Brad Berkwitt Show, you know that I love doing 360 conversations with all types of people. Well, I made my bones in boxing over a quarter of a century ago, interviewing world champion boxers, people in the sport, and entertainers that love the sport of boxing, which led to my induction into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in June of 2021. And that's the ring that you see me wear all the time on my show. Well, if you like to pick up my book, Boxing Interviews of a Lifetime, go to authorhouse.com. Again, it's authorhouse.com. And if you would like to get it personally inscribed or inscribed for somebody that you're sending it to as a gift, you can reach out to me and we can arrange for something as well. Okay, we're now back. There's no right or wrong answers here. Whatever comes in your mind, that's the right answer. What is your favorite genre of movies?
My favorite movie is The Godfather and Godfather 2. Those two I'll watch anytime, anywhere, at any point. I know most of it by heart. I don't know why. It's not a mob movie. It's opera. It's family. It's beautifully shot. You know, comedies, Monty Python, Life of Brian.
Oh.
To me, the smartest, funniest, most intelligent movie I've ever seen. And I remember when it came out in New York, the protesters with the signs outside the theater, which just added to the juice of going to see it.
When they're crucified, they're crucified. My dad took me to see that on Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah, you mentioned in an email before, Facing the Crowd.
Oh.
Love that movie. But, you know, yeah. You know, I can go different genres, different movies. It's just, what can I watch? I can watch Animal House. No matter where it starts, I'll watch till the end.
Okay.
So it's not so much a genre thing. It's just very case specific.
Gotcha. Well, you preach to the choir, because number one and number two for me is The Godfather 1 and 2. My dad was friendly with Al Ruddy, who, as you know, produced the original Godfather. And I know I'm not going to mention names, but I know someone else close to you is a huge Godfather fan too, as well.
Yep.
So, and I got all my paraphernalia down, all my memorabilia, downstairs in my man cave. Okay. Do you have a favorite musical artist or somebody that you just really enjoy listening to? They never get old.
Kind of a blues fan, and I love jazz. I love Miles Davis, Coltrane, but blues, back to Chicago Electric Blues, up to the British Invasion, to modern times. There's one album, Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore, that's in my DNA.
Okay. That's interesting you mentioned that, because my next question literally was, do you remember the first record you bought on wax that you played it to the needle couldn't play no more?
My grandmother came to the house, brought us a 45 of All My Lovin'.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the Beatles in my DNA. I was actually at a party recently and Ringo was there. So I had a moment I never thought I'd have. Just cool. being in the same space.
Awesome.
Because it was actually, I was talking to some guy about music, and I love blues. Who do you like? What guitarist? So we're sitting there having this energetic conversation about music, and out of the corner of my eye, I look, and Ringo passes by. And it's like, I just took in the moment.
That's cool. I like Ringo. He's a cool dude. What is a book from your childhood you read that until this day, it still affects you?
It's probably going to be Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
Just coming of age, a story I could understand, emotions I could understand, but this is literature, and that went through, probably in college, Kurt Vonnegut. When I started studying religion, Alan Watts. I always liked his, very smart, very wise, but also very funny.
Okay.
Guy. So at different times, different books.
Okay. Off the top of your head, memorable childhood memory that pops in your head that you think about?
I used to play Little League, and I had one summer where they had all-star game tryouts, and somehow, and I don't know how, I got in the zone, and I went like 20 for 21 in these Little League tryouts, and I was not a big kid by any stretch, but I was there. I just got to that place, and I made the team. Eventually, we won a game. Then I got up, bottom of the last inning, bases loaded, down by 1 run. I got up, struck out. I still relive it.
Okay. Okay. What is the first job you ever had on the books or off the books?
Off the books, man, factory work, cutting lawns in the summer, shoveling snow, worked in factories. On the books, worked for a very sleazy magazine company in New York. First job where the owner carried a loaded 38 on his belt. And I remember they made a ton of money because they did a magazine they threw together when Elvis died. And that was their claim to fame. It was this clearinghouse where people would come in and go, I got fired for refusing to plagiarize. Strange thing. It was like welcome to work.
Okay.
I worked all over restaurants, cheese shops, you name it, whatever job I could get.
Okay. Okay. What is your favorite vacation destination?
I spent a week on a private island in the Caribbean once at a mansion. It was not through my own doing, but I was on the ride. Most blissful week I've ever spent.
Okay.
Destinations, I'd love to go back to Japan. I'd love to go back to Kyoto. I've yet to do the mainstream traveling. London, Paris, Rome, Florence. I've been to Greece. That was actually beautiful. I was on Mykonos for a week.
Okay.
Walking down from the hills, seeing the sun blast off of these whitewashed houses. And I actually went around Greece for 2 months ordering Turkish coffee in cafes until a waiter once looked me in the eye and said, Greek coffee. And then I was reminded that the Turks inhabited Greece for about 400 years and they're not too fond of them.
Okay.
So it was an instant history lesson.
Gotcha. If you could meet one person from any time in history, any walk of life, dead or alive, who would you like to meet? And what would either be a question or a conversation or a topic that you'd like to discuss with that person that you pick?
I'm going to say JFK only because I saw him when I was a kid. I was one of those kids on his father's shoulders watching him make a local appearance. It formed me watching the news. It was a rite of passage. It's still in my DNA to go. If I ever met a president, I'd have one question. Who did it? What I would ask, I don't know. I don't think there'd be one question.
Okay.
There'd be a million questions.
Okay.
But that's just off the top of my head. I could go on. Musicians, athletes, politicians, not so quick.
Okay. With everything we discussed today in a 360 conversation, Ian, if you had to sum yourself up as a human being, what would you say?
Trying to see what's right. I get furious when I think I see what's right, and yet it doesn't seem to be apparent to the people I live with, meaning the rest of the people in the country. I'm infuriated that this guy has power, and it's polluted, I would say, the last 10 to 15 years of my life. I've written 4 books. I scream at the TV nightly. I don't understand it. I've tried to understand it. I wish the country would sober up so we can just get back to business, back to doing what's normal. But this place has fractured in a way that we weren't supposed to. You know, it's been over 100 some odd years since the Civil War, you know, and I see this idiot trying to take us back to the 1960s, back to the 1860s, and then back to some, you know, biblical Jesus riding on a dinosaur time. I don't understand what's going on. So, you know, I've had people, I was in a meeting once years ago talking about, I don't know, Trump came up and I went off on a tear and some guy said, you know, you seem to be kind of angry. And the only thing I could think of was, how come you're not?
Exactly. Exactly. I have a saying about that. People say to me, why do you always speak out, Brad? And you know, my response has always been, because you won't. Because you won't.
This
You're
shouldn't be a
angry
thing.
because of what's going on, because you know what's right and what's wrong. This is not a difference anymore of political stances and policies. This is fucking good and evil. Here, this is how I feel. It's good and evil. Because if it was so wrong about Roe versus Wade, if they thought that was the right thing, then these fucking ruby red states, these women wouldn't be going to the polls and voting against them, taking away women's rights. But the problem is they were complicit to get to this point where they did take away Roe versus Wade, because probably a lot of those women voted for Trump initially. But it was, oh, I didn't think he would do that. He's not going to affect us. Oh, yes, he is.
You know, what they don't see is that all women are going to suffer.
Yeah.
Because it's biology, and biology doesn't know anything about political affiliation. All women are going to suffer, as are the men in their lives, because women will have complications in their pregnancy.
Yes.
These things will happen. And if you're unfortunate enough to live in Texas or some other red state, your life is going to be a horror show. You're going to bleed to death in some parking lot because of what this guy did. He alone did it. Remember that? I alone can fix it shit?
Yep.
Which remind me to tell you just an anecdote about that. But he did this. And people have suffered and will suffer. Why would you vote to suffer?
Right. No, give me the anecdote. Go ahead. I alone, unless it's too long.
No.
Go ahead.
In 2016, on his Republican convention, that American Carnage bullshit speech, when he said, I alone can fix it, when I heard that, what I was thinking is, this is too grand. He doesn't speak with that kind of rhetorical flourish. That's not him. And then I remembered that his first wife, the one who fell down the stairs and he buried at the golf course, told her first divorce lawyer, the book he kept by his bed was Hitler's speeches. After 2016, I started reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which I didn't finish, so don't tell me how it ends. But I'm reading it, and I left off at the part where Hitler got out of prison and was putting the band back together, and he said, I alone lead the movement. That told me where he got that. And that told me how he thinks. You know, so calling him, he's Hitler, you know, I've said he's Hitler light, all the flavor with 10% less hate. It tells you how he thinks. What you were saying, you know, he loves Erdogan and Xi Jinping and other Putin. That is who this guy is. And we, the people, whether it was legit or not, elected him, almost reelected him, and had Biden stayed in, would have re-elected him. That's not on him. That's on us. That's on our education system. That's on the way we define patriotism. That's on the way we define being Americans, what it means to live like this, which I think is a superior way to live, whether you play the democracy republic game or not. You look around the world, you go, this is a better place to live. But democracy is only as valid as the hands in which it's been placed at any given time. And we let a maniac, we put it in his hands, and we could have done it again.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And we could still do it again.
Yeah, no, you're right. Right. So the election is over. We don't know what's going to happen. Final question that I always end on, because the show is all about moving humanity forward. What is your message or hope for humanity?
Wake up, stop fighting. And I know that's a vast oversimplification, because if you look at history, you realize we can't. You know, again, look at the Middle East. You can't quantify horror, brutality. You would think there would be greater minds to find a way out of this. I don't understand why this is what people do. Then again, I look at it and go, well, sometimes people aren't all that cracked up to be.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think people are evolution's overreach. And if we just stopped with animals, this would be a quieter, cleaner, safer place.
Huh.
We wouldn't be here, but you know, so the fuck what?
Okay.
You know, I don't care what people have accomplished, what they figured out. You can fly from one place to another. Yeah, but you can also fly a plane into a building.
Yeah. Good analogy.
Do better. Do better. You know, you've got an opposable thumb. You've got a brain. Do better.
Okay. Give the viewers your social media platforms where they can find you.
I'm on, I still call it Twitter because I'm stubborn. I don't know what's happened to this platform since, but I'm under my name. Just dial it in. I'm playing around with TikTok because I'm addicted to it. Instagram, I'm there, but mostly Twitter. But it's gotten funky since it got sold. But yeah, I'll talk to anybody, most anybody.
Okay. I'm gonna close out with a few thoughts here, and I'm gonna give you back the mic to close out completely. First of all, again, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm glad someone that we know introduced us. They said we were going to have a good time, and I enjoyed speaking to you today. You're in New York. I don't care how long you're in Hollywood. You're in New York. I'm in Indiana. The New Yorker is never leaving. In fact, we even say New York is not leaving. So it was a pleasure talking to you today. I want to thank you because you don't have to speak out. Nobody does, but you do it at whatever cost it comes to you. On Twitter, you speak out against Trump. You speak out against what you try to be on the right side of history and not the wrong side of history. And you use your platform to do it. You know, I know a lot of people in Hollywood. I think it's more to the right. It's the Sorbos and the Bales and these creeps that open their mouth and just are insane, and then they wonder why they get canceled. I always say cancel culture, a lot of it is really consequences culture. You think you could say whatever you want, the most vile shit, and there's going to be no repercussions when you're driven by what fans go buy your movie or buy your book or whatever. You think you could say these things, which you have the right to do because you can't do it in Russia, but you back Russia, but you can't speak like you're in Russia. But thank you for using your platform for moving humanity forward. And as I say, fighting for democracy. And I appreciate that. What I want to do is give you back the mic, close out, and anything you want.
You know, the reason Chachi's not working is not because he's been canceled. He had his one break. You're done. So to play that card is just sort of sour grapes and being pissy. What to end on? I don't know. I am watching eagerly. I'm going to watch the Democratic convention. I'm going to watch the debate. It is still mind-blowing to me that this guy is still in the game. I've tried to understand it for years of articles and podcasts and radio shows and through 4 books, trying to understand why we do what we do. You know, you want to dust off a dusty old Republican like Mitt Romney, give him another shot, be my guest. You know, we can get back to the world where we have conversations. That's fine. This is insane. You know, we found the worst person in the country and gave him the most important job on the planet. That's beyond stupidity. It's suicide. But yet, he's still a thing. If Biden hadn't dropped out, I don't know what would have happened. And, you know, when it comes down to it, I guess I am, and going through the 60s, it's hard to come up with this word. I'm patriotic. In, to me, the most meaningful way of saying that. And I despise that this person and those people have any power in this country. You know, and that's all I'll be watching the next few months to see what happens, hoping that we get a new lease on life. But like I said, I'm stuck somewhere between 2008 Obama, yes we can, and 2016 Hillary, I'm with her. And I still feel squeamish about it. I wish Democrats would appoint someone to take, someone like Josh Shapiro to just go after this guy and rebrand him. You know, it's that moment in Facing the Crowd. Somebody has to make that moment happen in public, in a public forum. Basically, pull his fucking pants down.
Yeah.
Show him for the clown he is and for the damage he's done, and just get him out of the body politic. That'll be my last word.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Let's stay in touch, and I'll let you know when I get the book. And I'll have you back on again. We'll do a whole show just around your book. That'd be great. I'll get the technical part better. Okay, brother. Take care. You too.